1st, 2019, City Council meeting. Our invocation will be provided by Karen Tutak. Tutak? All right. Pastor, Mount Washington United Methodist Church. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious God, we just thank you for this time that we have together to do the good work for our city of Independence. I ask your blessings upon our mayor and upon all who are on the council. We ask, O Lord, that your wisdom be brought forth as they do their work regarding the people of our community and the city itself. May you guide them, and may all our conversations here be filled with grace and courage as you bring discernment upon every topic and upon every heart. And this I ask in the precious name of Jesus and in the power of your Holy Spirit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Doherty.
Here.
DeLucy. Here. Robertson. Here. Van Camp.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Next, we have our citizens' request. When I call you forward, please state your name for the record, and the city clerk will keep time. All right, Deborah Holmes. And you'll be addressing marijuana zoning? Or, yeah, okay. Right this way now. Okay, because you've spoken before, you only
I
got
only
3.
have 3 minutes, I know. I know the rules, so I'll make it short and sweet. So I tried to tell you at first why I had an interest in medical cannabis and why this was important to me as a resident, as well as important to me as a patient, as a mother, and as someone with an uncle who has stage 4 lymphoma. So the kid gloves were on the first time and now they're off. I would actually like to ask who on this council might actually be invested in Herbal Health LLC, because they had a writ against the city right before there was no zoning that immediately went away. And then applications were due on 8/19, and now the registered agent is 222 Maple, office of the Carnes, which just happens to be good friends with District 2, along with Stephen Tilley, who happens to be the paid lobbyist for the Missouri Medical Cannabis Trade Association. And he was the paid lobbyist when he was hired by the city and was part of Strategic Consultants. So, I also know that Strategic Consultants gave money to 2 campaigns on the council. And then Tilley was magically hired, and then my rates went through the roof so that I couldn't even run my hot tub. So, and now we're having some issues with zoning and other things. So my question is, are you an investor in the 7 applications that went in on 8/19, sir? Because if you are, I'd like you to fix zoning and resign from your post.
Excuse me.
You can't address a council member directly. You have to address the full council.
Okay, well, if he is, I would like him to resign his post immediately, and I would like you guys to fix zoning before you're sued, because I really don't want to have to pay for your mess as a resident.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you.
Is this gone? Next we have Wendy Yon, who's going to talk on business licenses.
This is some business license. Several local businesses, including all $8 tree stores, have placed signs banning dogs from entering their stores. My family members' payments were refused for their purchases. The reason given by store personnel is that they were Jewish and not welcome in their store. Later that day, Katie, she's a blind service dog, and her owner were also denied admittance to their store. I believe that this act was illegal and hateful as well. The hate-filled discriminatory behavior and practice has been reported to city officials, and we haven't heard respond back. Last week, I went to receive housing services from the Community Service League. The receptionist asked me if I had read the sign on the door. I hadn't noticed anything. She stated there was a no dogs allowed sign. I said, I don't have one with me. She said, you don't understand. Everybody knows that there's a sign that was put up in Nazi Germany to keep Jews from going into shops and other places. I informed her that I don't appreciate Nazi racist hatred propaganda being placed in any public place in America, and that I won't, as a United States citizen, put up with hate in this community in my hometown of Independence, Missouri in 2019 either. According to the manager of Community Service League, it relies on the City of Independence to complete and manage its grant applications, budget, and management of government funding. The manager, who I recognize as a shift manager from the McDonald's at 24 Highway and 291, was encouraging his staff to engage in hate speech and put racist symbols and words and behavior to occur at a nonprofit that was funded over 100 years ago by Bess Truman and the other women from the Presbyterian Church at Independence. It stuns me. I don't think that these women would approve of the actions or the direction the staff of the Community Service League have taken the agency. Community Service League used to serve everyone in the city regardless of creed or color. I asked the Independence City Council to join me in condemning hate in any shape or form. I urge this council to review its business licenses, policies, and unequivocally state that the City of Independence, Missouri will suspend or revoke business license of businesses promoting hate against its law-abiding citizens. The city should also defund and eliminate its business with the current management of Community Service League. Hate speech, hate symbols, or hateful acts should not be tolerated in this vibrant, diverse city. Thank you.
Thank you. So, our first proclamation for this evening is for Imagine a Day Without Water Day. Madam City Clerk.
Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas any measure of a successful society in some way relates to clean and safe water, and whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend, and whereas the city's Water Pollution Control Department treats approximately 3 billion gallons of wastewater per year. Now therefore, Eileen N. Weir, Mayor of the City of Independence, hereby proclaims October 23rd, 2019 as Imagine a Day Without Water Day, and encourages all citizens to help protect our waterways from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues.
And our final proclamation is this evening is for Regional Arts and Humanities Month. Madam City Clerk.
Whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, enriching the lives of everyone. And whereas integrating the arts into workforce development programs and education creates well-rounded workers with the technical and creative thinking skills that foster innovation in business and inspire entrepreneurship. And whereas the arts are an intrinsic part of our vibrant region and contribute to its well-being and quality of life. Whereas the nonprofit arts industry drives economic growth, jobs, and cultural tourism in the region. Now therefore, Eileen N. Weir, Mayor of the City of Independence, hereby proclaims October as Regional Arts and Humanities Month in Independence, and encourages all residents to participate in the arts in their city throughout the year, and especially during October, during the Arts and Humanities Month.
you.
This brings us to our consent agenda.
Mayor Pro
Councilmember
Tem.
Huff.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
Are there any council members, which, is this where I do this? Okay. Are there any council members wishing to pull any items for separate consideration?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
You going to relinquish, or you first?
No, go ahead. Let her sit.
Councilman, councilperson.
I'd like to pull 19805.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilman?
That's the same one, so.
Oh, okay. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda minus items 1905?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes. Councilman DeLucci?
19805, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, is a resolution directing the city manager to do all things necessary to proceed with the installation of electric vehicle charging stations. I do not know how many vehicle stations we're talking about. I don't remember our recent purchase of any. I don't know what the fiscal impact will be. I don't know who's going to do the installation. I don't know what authority there is to do any of this. It's a very open-ended resolution. I don't even know if there's a need for charging stations. I noticed that one of the sections in here says that the council members are going to direct where the charging stations are going to be located. I've never seen anything like that, and I would like to know, one, do we need any? And if we need any, how many?
Any other responses?
Well, I have some questions too. Is somebody going to answer hers first?
I would like an answer because I have follow-up questions.
I was having trouble hearing her, but
Mr. City Manager, Assistant City Manager?
Yes, those are all questions we need to look into as a staff to provide a response. Physical impact, locations. I think the resolution speaks to the number here. I think there'd be 2 per council member and the mayor, so there looks like it'd be 14 total. The locations to be determined, though.
Do we know how much a charging station costs?
I believe it's around $5,000 to $6,000 for the station itself, and then installation would be on top of that. I could be wrong about that number, though.
Well, I suggest, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that this is premature. I think money is very tight in this city. I haven't heard that we have a need for 14 charging stations. I don't know where the money's going to come from to pay for the charging stations. I don't know who's going to install the charging stations. This is too loose a resolution, and I am vehemently opposed to it.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilman?
if this was to proceed, we'd go through a procurement process as normal. Is that correct, to put out for bid who would do this work?
Yes, that's correct.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have some questions if I could. How many do we have installed, and how many do we have waiting to be installed right now? Do you have any idea?
No, that's something I'd have to get a number on that.
Okay. So there's some we have that haven't been installed, though.
I believe we just closed on a bid to install 2 at Centerpoint.
And who has installed the ones we have so far? Because I know we have a number of them already out. My understanding is that IPL has installed those. Is that right?
I believe staff has installed those up to this
Staff
point.
has installed those. Is anybody from IPL here? No? Okay. Have we had any problems with the ones we've had installed?
They're pretty new installations, but I don't believe we've had any issues.
No issues. So if the IPL employees have the ability and the experience, I'm not sure why we would pay double. Why would we hire an outside firm and pay them when we're already paying city employees that can do the job? And one of our, I noticed in our packet today, we had the Independence for All goals, and one of those has to do controlling long-term cost, optimizing resources, and improve the long-range financial decision-making for the city. So if we've already used the city employees from IPL to install these, we haven't had any problems, and we're paying them anyway by the hour, why would we hire an outside firm to come in and install more of them when we already have employees that can do that? That means we're paying the city employees and we're paying a contract for outside people to do the same thing. So I think there's a real problem here with the finances and with the plan because it's just not efficient for the city. Plus, we have no room in the budget. We've actually had to shave the budget because of a budget shortfall again this year for the third year. So I would highly recommend that we table this, and I would move that we table this.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Huff.
I thought we already passed this once, and this is just to catch up when they bought the electric cars.
Just to buy the meters, buy the charging stations.
Yeah, when that part of the package with the
With the
11 or
cars.
12 cars. Okay, so this is part of that.
Yeah, but IPL's installed the ones so far.
Yeah, I know they
I
did
don't
the
think-
Tesla ones. I know they installed the wires to them. I don't know about the actual installation, but
They may not have done Tesla because they're a little different, but they installed all the other ones. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. City Manager, these were pre-existing charging stations, is that correct? Before we took up anything? I mean, the only two that are in the hopper are two at Center Point, and they haven't been installed yet, right?
That's correct. Those have not been installed yet.
So this is just a follow-up to what we've done, or what we voted on to bring in? They're using charging stations that had already existed.
Are you speaking to the 14 that are mentioned in this resolution?
No. We have a fleet of electrical cars.
Yes.
And what charging stations are they using?
I would have to check on that, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, there's how many? There's ones out here that
10.
used to be free before you brought up the,
There's a whole bunch up on Lynn, off of Lynn, with all the rechargeable cars that are not the ones that citizens can use and pay for the electricity. So they're just direct charging stations for city vehicles only. And I
Okay.
believe there's 8
but
of
that
them.
wasn't part of this program, right?
Yes, that was part of the program when we bought the automobiles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this then is just a follow-through to that original program?
No, we have some others that people can use and pay, just like the ones up here by City Hall and by the utility building. Yeah.
Okay. Is this a follow-up to that program?
there's just more.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, Councilman.
We passed this by resolution quite some time ago to put in up to 20. And what it was is we've had people ask why they haven't been put in, and staff said, well, we don't know where to put them. And the reason they started to do 2 and put out a bid to finish at Center Point asked for 2. So what this is anybody that wants one in their area can suggest 2 locations, and if they're feasible, that's where they'll put them in that. But we've already passed this. Of course, there's amnesia and we forget. It's been a long time. We've already passed this by resolution to put these in. There's like 1,100 in Kansas City, and Independence doesn't have any to charge these cars. Last year was the biggest year for electrical vehicle sales so far. So what it is, it just, they haven't been put in. I asked why. They've already wrote a purchase order for some of the units. The two for CenterPoint, my understanding, has been purchased, but they don't know where to put the others. They were going to do two at the Chamber lot, but they haven't decided if they're going to repave the lot. So it's basically, if you've got an area in your district you'd like a charger, merely suggest it. The construction people will see if it's feasible, and they'll either use the bidder they already have on the bidder list or put it out for bid. My understanding, they had put the CenterPoint one out for bid recently and have got that back through the procurement department.
Point of
Mr. City
order.
Manager.
I made a motion and there was a second, and that motion is on the floor.
Okay?
So I guess the discussion should only center on whether to table it or not.
So,
And Mr. City Mayor Pro Tem.
yes, there's been, that there be no more discussion because of you seconding the motion to put this off? Is that the motion?
It's a motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone. Call the roll.
I'd like to move to postpone it until the first meeting in December. I don't have that date in front of me. I was looking at my calendar here.
I'll second that.
We've already,
Well, I think Mr. Doherty is incorrect. I think this is an additional
what, I'm
14
sorry,
charging
aren't we?
stations.
Didn't you say no discussion? We're going to go with the motion now. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Berthoff,
No?
Perkins,
No.
Doherty,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp.
No. Motion fails. Now, do we get more discussion? Okay. Is there anybody else wanting to be heard, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
Councilman DeLucy?
I believe Councilmember Doherty was incorrect when he stated that this resolution is encompassed by the prior resolution. We have already purchased those charging stations. This is an additional 14 charging stations. I would like to know how much money we're going to be spending on each charging station. I would like to know the need for each charging station. And I would like to know where the money is going to come from to pay for both the charging station and the installation of the charging stations.
I would assume those are directed at our staff? Mr. City
It's
Manager?
Councilmember
You
Doherty's
will get back with the
resolution.
councilman on that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilman? Person?
Can I have answers to my questions?
Our city manager, Assistant City Manager Adam Norris says he'll get those answers for you.
And so we're going to pass a resolution in the dark. I am vehemently opposed to this resolution.
Okay. So who pulled it? So
I did, and I'm
So-
not moving to pass it.
are you going to make the motion to
To
vote on
pass
it?
it? No. If Mr. Doherty wants his motion passed,
sorry.
Mr. Doherty can make his motion.
You want
Sure. I move to approve whatever it was, 19,805.
Second.
okay.
Discussion?
Motion's been made and seconded.
I just want to make sure this has already been passed, correct? You're just, sounds like to me by reading this that it says, directing the city manager to all necessary things to proceed with installation. Are you, it sounds like
I'm
to me it's
sorry.
already done.
Did we make the motion? Is this out of order or can it?
No.
Okay, go right ahead. So
So,
yours is
Assistant
wrong.
City Manager, I'd like to know, has this been passed before?
I'd have to look into that. It's not clear to me.
Okay, so we have a motion. Oh,
Point of information.
I remember them passing it, and it was for 20 units. They have not been purchased. They've only purchased 2 because that was the locations they were going to put them in. So I was just asking, why haven't they been put in? Because it's been quite some time, and some other people have asked, how can we get a charging station? So the came back is, we don't know where we want to put them yet. And the 2 we put in is because CenterPoint asked for them. So, well, maybe with the council members had a place they'd want to put them, then they said we'd go out and put them in. But they have not purchased 20 units yet. They have purchased 2 for CenterPoint. Now, the cost of them will vary depending on the type of unit, whether you put multiple units. They've already had a vendor because this has already been passed. And hopefully, when we show you this, that you'll retract your false statements, because they've already had either 6 or 7 vendors in the procurement department come back with the equipment and prices for the different brands of chargers. So they've already got a list of the equipment that's been through the purchasing department and vetted out and approved to purchase, so they can buy from one of either 6 or 7 vendors. It's been approved. And they've already written a purchase order for a certain amount of them, but they've only put 2 because that's the 2 locations. And they put that out for bid, public bid, that anybody in the world could bid on, I guess, however you do that. And they've got bids back, I guess, one day last week or something, as far as I know, to do the CenterPoint ones. So that's the authorization, because we had it probably about a year ago.
So,
It was part of the car chargers, and we split it that day.
right, so normally, we have to vote on it before you send out an RFP, correct?
There'll be a record of it.
It would depend on the threshold of the purchasing.
Yeah.
You know, if it's within the city manager's purchasing authority, we could do that. We would competitively bid certain items, though.
Yeah, because it was a package. We were getting cars, and then we were also having that company put chargers in. But there was a dispute over the purchase of the car chargers. So we split it because the private company would have gotten the tax credit, but the city wouldn't. That's why we had it packaged. But we split it that night and passed the chargers. And then later, we just went, I guess somehow the city bought the cars. And then they bought 10 chargers for those cars that only the cars can use, not the public. And these are for public paying. If you go on the internet for a motel site or venue, they'll say if they have car chargers. You'll always see the Bass Pro Shop, the Tesla cars going there because they've got those units there. Now, we've put some at was it Venture? Mr. Norris, would we put 2 at Venture? Venture Target or Venture Store, wasn't it? So we've got 2 at the Venture Store already. But those were donated chargers that were installed. So, yeah.
Councilman.
So the resolution, as I'm reading it, has no numbers. It doesn't say 14 chargers, it doesn't say 20 chargers. There's no numbers in my copy, nothing.
It said each member could
And
do 2, that'd be
There's
14.
And there's two things passed by the council mentioned in the whereases.
Yeah.
Resolution 6290, a non-ordinance item, but there's no resolution mentioned in this resolution that we already passed. There's no reference back to the previous resolution, if there was one, that we already passed. And so I'm saying things are not as they should be for a resolution that's passed by this council. The information is not all here. The numbers are not here. We don't know if we passed one or not. The assistant city manager can't answer that question tonight. And I think we just don't have the information to really address this tonight. And maybe the resolution needs to be looked at and rewritten some too. So I, again, would encourage you to vote it down tonight, and let's reconsider it another night. There's too many questions that aren't answered, and it's too vague, and there's no numbers. This is open-ended. That, yeah.
Madam City Clerk, there's a motion. I'm sorry? What's the motion on the floor?
The motion's to approve Bill number 19805.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 19805.
Yes.
Call the roll.
Who was
Council
the
members.
second, please?
Excuse me?
Who was the second?
Councilmember
I didn't hear a
Perkins.
second.
I was, Councilwoman.
John Perkins?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
DeLucy,
No.
Robertson,
No.
Dane Camp.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem, this says to proceed. The city manager can't proceed on something that's not been authorized. And the cost will depend on if they use 1, 2, or 3 units at the location. And the costs are already been vetted out on a sheet that they got from the vendors. So you go that sheet and however many you put, if you put 3 on one place, then it's units times 3. If you put 1, it's units times 1. One unit has the computer that goes and charges the rate. If you put 2, the second one talks to the first one, and they're less money. So it depends on how many you put and what type you put them. And then the cost to put them in would depend on the location. So that's why there's no hard cost. But they can't proceed with something that wasn't authorized. So if it's authorized, they proceed. If it's not authorized, they don't.
Because we both have mine fully electric and Councilman Robertson has partial electric, I'm well aware of how to use and what the difference is. I am somewhat taken aback that we just put in dumb, would that be meters that the public cannot use for the fleet?
I voted against it. I said put in meters that anybody can use.
That would have been in their hindsight. Thank you. So we move on. Okay, this brings us to our public hearings. First is a public hearing for amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code relating to medical marijuana in sections 14-201, 14-301, 14-302, and adding section 14-4-421, full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
Good evening. My name is Tom Scannell. I'm the Community Development Director. This ordinance is making an amendment to the already approved medical marijuana regulations. This ordinance was introduced by City Council and was remanded to the Planning Commission for further review. It makes several changes, most notably to the buffer requirements to get in line with the state constitution amendment. As well as cleans up some other language within the ordinance. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in support? Of this amendment?
Good evening. Mayor Pro Tem Dave Henson, representing KCHC LLC. We do have an application in for your city for a dispensary. As the director stated, this amendment to the code will bring you in closer to constitutional standard for the state of Missouri. The ordinance that was passed earlier in the summer put in the 500-foot buffer zone, which you are the only city in the state of Missouri that has that. It puts an undue burden on the people who had already had the applications in process, because this was a process that started way back in late winter, actually in early spring. Under the Constitution, under the constitutional mandate, entities that were wishing to apply had to be under leases with the buildings that they were looking to put the dispensaries in. So those leases had to be in effect prior to your amending your ordinance for this. As the lady that gave public testimony stated, that was one of the reasons for Herbalife to file the lawsuit against you all, because all 5 of their facilities that they put in for fall under that 500-foot rule. So all of them would be automatically knocked out under that. The only reason they lost is because they have not been damaged yet, because the state of Missouri has not awarded an application to anyone. So that's why their lawsuit was kicked out. I was here earlier back in the summer whenever your attorney was asked about Ordinance 1923 and the constitutional of it, and it was stated that their belief was that it was unconstitutional. As far as the special use permit aspect that was not removed under this amendment, I testified in front of your planning commission that we do not believe, as far as our company, that it's a due burdens on us, because basically it would be the same process that the state is using now to vet everyone. But someone that was awarded a license and then would possibly be kicked out under the special use permit that's in there could possibly claim that it's undue burdens. But as I testified, it was public record that I don't believe, as far as our part, we don't think that would be necessarily a due burdens on us, because there's special use permits all across the state, so, and cities are allowed to do that. The biggest thing is the 500-foot rule. That is, none other in the state of Missouri has done that, and so it would be due process on anyone that was awarded. So I believe you have 14 applications in for your city. 9 of the 14 would be kicked out under the 500-foot rule. And just because that company didn't make it doesn't mean the state would go down the list. There's several, I don't know if you've looked at the map, but there's several entities that put on right on the edge of the city of Independence. Sugar Creek, there's one probably 50 feet outside the city limits of you all. Same way with Kansas City, Blue Springs area, that they're just right on your edge. So just because someone would get kicked out doesn't mean they would just go straight down the list of 14 for the city of Independence. So it would be my hope that you all would take up the resolution and pass it, and hopefully have discussion about the special use permit, because I believe, as your staff had stated before, the director stated at the Planning Commission that that was something that could be a burdensome if someone wanted to challenge it in legal fight. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, this public merit hearing is closed. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
Did you read 19058? I missed it.
Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 19058, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code pertaining to medical marijuana facilities. Second and final reading.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Councilman.
I would like to move to amend the resolution to delete the section on special use permits. So that's section 14-421-02.
I second it.
What was the section? The section. What was the section that you're wanting to delete?
14-421-02.
Excuse me.
So can I speak to that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Go right ahead.
So even though, I think the resolution itself with the special use permit gets us closer to the state regulations, I think they still could put us at risk for liability and for lawsuits against the City of Independence. And so my purpose is both to save us from having to go through a number of lawsuits and the cost that the city would bear, but also to fall in line with the state constitution and the requirements, and that is really what the resolution would do without the special use permits. So I think this puts us squarely in line with the state if we eliminate those special use permits, and that's why I'm moving that.
Any other comments?
Yes. We have to remember that this industry, although it's going to operate in Missouri, is against still federal law. I think the neighborhood needs to have some input to a business that operates 100% on cash and operates selling a substance that's against federal law. If the neighbors, and there's a lot of areas in the residential area that by default have commercially zoned properties, the neighbors have a right to come and say, hey, we're not against it. There's lots of places to put these, just don't put it here. At the very best, 2 to 4 licenses could possibly be granted to Independence. I'd say we've got more than ample commercial buildings. But neighbor, you have to remember, they claim the average sales between $60 and just under $200. A friend of mine went to Colorado to go to a weed shop. It opened at 8. There were 50 people in line. All those people probably had $200 in cash on them. The payroll's in cash, the light bill's in cash, the inventory has to be hauled in and out. Maybe neighbors are concerned with someone trying to rob the place for the material, rob the place for the money, or rob the people in the parking lot. And they would feel safer if it was on maybe Nolan Road or 23rd rather than up on Waldo somewhere. So the special use permit would give the neighbors, which it seems like all you always want anyway, except on this, a chance to come in and say, hey, just not here, put it on a different commercial property. So I don't support taking away the neighbors and the people's right to say, hey, don't put it in my backyard, put it up on 23rd or Nolan Road or 40 Highway or somewhere like that, 24 Highway.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Councilman.
the voters of the state of Missouri amended the Missouri Constitution. And that amendment is very clear. There shall be no undue burden placed on the placement or sale of medical marijuana. By inserting a special use permit, we are becoming the only city to have a special use permit. We are becoming the only city to give neighbors veto power on a Missouri constitutional amendment. We are asking for litigation. I am all in favor of litigation. It is my trade. However, this city is facing serious financial concerns. We do not have money to frivolously waste on lawsuits that we can easily avoid. It is for that reason I seconded the motion to remove the special use permit requirement. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll speak one more time. It seems like the very common sense thing to do to allow us to allow neighbors to decide, but the neighbors and the citizens and voters of Missouri have already decided when they passed this at the state level and it became part of the Missouri Constitution. So when we start to insert ourselves as a city or as a city council into the regulations that have already been put into the Constitution, then we begin to see problems, and the problems will wind up, I'm afraid, in lawsuits. So I think even though it sounds like common sense, this particular issue is not an issue that we will have any say over. Ultimately, either the courts or the state will step in my opinion.
Anybody? Madam City Clerk?
This is for the motion to amend Bill number 19058 to delete section 14-421-02. Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes, I want to take it out.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp.
No. Motion fails?
The current motion on the floor is to approve Bill number 19058.
Any comments?
For a roll call, are you doing this?
Pardon?
Is this happening?
I'm sorry?
Is he going to make the motion for that? It happens now.
So we can't just vote on the approval of it or not approval of it?
Well, are you wanting to approve it?
No.
Okay, well then we're going to make this motion.
I don't know that I'm,
Okay, well, someone make it or we vote to approve it.
so where we're at is now is approval of.
Uh-huh. So you would make this now if this is what you're wanting to do, before we
Make
approve
this
it.
what?
Before we,
Well, let me get a German here. Want a 5-minute recess? Madam City Clerk.
Okay, this is for approval of bill number 19058. Councilmembers Huff? No. Perkins?
No.
Doherty?
No.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Van Camp?
No. Motion fails. Our next public hearing is for the application by Chris and Peyton Coulter requesting a rezoning from R18 PUD, Moderate Density Residential Plan Unit Development, to R6 Single Family Residential for the property located at 1220 S South Swope Drive. New information only. Mr. Scannell?
Yes, the Planning Commission on September 10th held their public hearing on this rezoning, and there's no new information to report on this case.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, this hearing is closed. Our next public hearing is for the application by Aldi, Inc., requesting a rezoning from R6, Single Family Residential, and C2, General Commercial, to C1, Neighborhood Commercial. New information only. Mr. Scannell.
Yes, the Planning Commission on September 10th held the public hearing on this rezoning, and there's no new information to report on this case.
Any comments or questions? Public hearing is closed.
You need to read the bills now.
I'm sorry.
No, city clerk.
Right here?
We need to read the bill.
Oh, go ahead.
Bill number 19072, an ordinance approving a rezoning from districts R6 Single Family Residential and C2 General Commercial to District C1 Neighborhood Commercial for the property located at 11004 East US 40 Highway in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading. Comments or questions?
Comments or questions?
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Robertson?
Yes.
Van Camp?
Yes.
Bill number...
Passes.
Bill number 19073, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District R18 PUD moderate density residential planned unit development and R6 single-family residential to District R6 single-family residential for the property located at 1220 South Swope Drive in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Any comments or questions?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes. Passes.
Just say we're moving to non-ordinance action items.
Just say. Non-ordinance items.
Consideration of first amended and restated intergovernmental cooperative agreement with the Nolan Road Community Improvement District. Comments or questions?
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, call the vote.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes. This takes us to our second readings. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 19071, an ordinance amending ordinance number 19005 by adding the acquisition of easements on 4 new parcels related to College Street Improvement Phase 1 project number 70111-805 in order to acquire general utility easements for the project. Second and final reading.
Any comments or discussion?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes. This takes us to our first reading.
Bill number 19077, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District C2 General Commercial to District O1 Office Residential for the property located south of Valley View Parkway, west of the Little Blue Parkway, and north of Valley View Road in Independence, Missouri. Bill number 19509, this is an emergency reading, so it'll receive 2 readings this evening. An ordinance approving a final plat of Voorhees Vale PUD, 18th plat, lots D2, D2-L, D2-R, D3, D3-L, and D3-R in Independence, Missouri, and declaring an emergency. Bill number 19509, an ordinance approving a final plat of Voorhees Vale PUD, 18th plat, lots D2, D2-L, D2-R, D3, D3-L, and D3-R in Independence, Missouri, and declaring an emergency. Second and final reading. Discussion?
Any discussion? Comments?
There.
Madam City?
Here. Is that the one with the emergency? Mm-hmm. Where is that for? What's the address on that? Where's that one at?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Mr. Scannell.
Here, there he is. All right. There it is.
These are all on 47 Terrace.
Okay.
It's 12704, 12706, 12708, 12710.
Okay, I see it now. I didn't hadn't pulled it up. I got it now. I got the map.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Councilman
you.
Huff?
How come it's always an emergency on this? I see this all the time. It seems like almost every meeting it's an emergency on these plats out here. Is there a reason for that?
It's council's past practice, going back many years, that final plats, in order to speed up development, that they were read as emergencies, so that the ordinance takes effect immediately, and the developer can record those plats, get them recorded, so that development can continue to move on.
I'm just wondering, I see it quite a bit. I would think that he would do it all at once, or he or she would do it all at once instead of seeing it every time, but, okay, thank you.
Madam Stigler?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Robertson,
Yes.
Van Camp.
Yes. Comments? So this brings us to council comments, and I'll start with Councilman DeLucci, seeing as how you're so far away.
I have nothing.
Councilman Robertson,
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilman Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We had some nice events over the weekend. If you missed them, you missed out. We had the Enchanted Forest out at the nature park. That's always a hit with the families and kids. Had the Freakers Ball out at the event center. It was well attended.
Wasn't clear again.
What we're having coming up is exciting news. In November, the 21st through the 24th, we'll have an old-fashioned circus come to town. As you know, Ringling Brothers are gone. There's not too many left. So if this is something that you want to see the animals and the clowns and the trapeze acts like the old-fashioned circus, November 21st through 24th. And the tickets go fast on it. It's always a sellout. So that's exciting coming up.
Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Was able to make it to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Friday night, had a good time there, was able to make some good contacts for some follow-up information for the west side of Independence. Brian Kidney there was with me also, and he remembered a few people, so we had some good contacts and follow-up. I was not able to make it to the 75th anniversary of the Heritage Philharmonic. I apologize to them greatly. I completely intended on showing. Work got me jammed up, so I apologize not for being there. They were celebrating their 75th year anniversary. Sorry didn't make it. Maybe I could be there for the next 75. We'll see.
Councilman Hub.
I have nothing this evening.
We are adjourned.